Hi, I'm Maida from Inspired Parenting. In this video, I wanted to talk to you about the cycle of emotions. I've had parents in my work as a away parenting instructor talk to me about how they felt overwhelmed with their children's emotions. And so I thought that and sometimes with our own emotions and what our children manage to trigger in us. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit my understanding of how emotions move through our system. So if we come from a state of positive state where we're happy and content and joyful and peaceful, what tends to happen is that life will throw a situation at us that generates emotions and stress. And what we have come to understand with the recent discoveries in somatic psychology is that those emotions get stored in our system. The same way that we talk about stress, and we're kind of more familiar with that pattern, where we get into a stressful situation, and our body releases hormones, and those hormones make our physiology work in a different way, in a way of fight or flight. And that ideally, for optimal health, we need to get rid of these hormones. Eventually we need to come back to a state of rest and digest, and this is how our body works best and how we're either healthier. So with emotions happens something similar, where when emotions are generated in our system, if they don't get fully expressed in a safe environment, they get stored up in our system. They get sort of frozen in our body as tensions, and there's lots of ways in which they show up, and they don't help us. They prevent us from functioning optimally. And so what's important to understand is a crucial aspect in away parenting, which is the balance of attention, which is the balance between feeling an emotion and feeling safe enough to go fully into it, so that it can be released from our system. How we manage this balance is by feeling the emotion, but feeling safe enough, as I said. So what creates the safety, which is often what's lacking, is feeling that we're there's often, for children, for example, will be a parent, but for us as adults it can be a friend or a therapist, a good listener, or even just sometimes our own internal parts that can be a part of us that is kind of wise and holding, and a part of us that is experiencing emotional arousal. And so there's always somebody or a part of us that's holding the ground, so to speak, that knows that all is very, very well, that our emotion, however big it is not gonna destroy us. That can bring that certainty and that safety, the sense of security and okayness. And it's important that part is not judging, and it's not trying to fix it. It's not trying to, for example, if we are holding the space for our children, that we're not trying to fix the situation, to get them out of that emotion, to solve it for them, because it's really important that the emotion is felt completely. And also it's important often for the emotion to feel mirrored, understood, so that this part can feel compassion and support. so that the process can go, the emotion can be felt fully, and then it just does its own process, and it totally discharges from our system. So this allows us then to go back to our original state of stability. And I'm going to show you a little diagram that I've created to illustrate this, in which this is our original state of love and peace and joy. Then life happens, it throws us out of balance, that generates emotions, and if we find a space of enough safety and the balance of attention is reached, we then can go into a healthy release, often through tears or laughter, or raging, sweating, shaking. All of those are signs of physiological discharge of emotions, and that all take us back to our natural state. Now, what can happen often is that because in our society we are not taught how to deal with emotions, and why they come up and where they come from and where they're going. This balance of attention is often not reached. And so when that happens, we tend to store our emotions too. And I usually imagine a bucket where we just put them in there. It's useful because there are moments where might not be suitable to process emotionally, and so that helps us function so that we don't get overwhelmed with emotions. We just put them in a container and wait until a moment where we can reach, where we have enough safety and we can process them. The only trouble is when that becomes a bit of a chronic situation where there's not enough safety in our lives to actually process emotions on a regular basis. And that leads to bottling them up. In order to keep them down, we use what we call, in aware parenting, control patterns, which are all the mechanisms we use to hold our emotions bottled. So all sorts of addictions, food addictions, even movement addictions, work addictions. Virtually everything can be used as a control pattern, and anything can be described as a control pattern if it's being used to hold emotions down. Now, because our system is naturally very intelligent and has an innate tendency towards release, because it knows that we don't function optimally with a backlog of emotions, our tendency is towards release. And children are very much in tune with that tendency. That's why they laugh more and they cry more. But as we grow up, if our parents don't know how to handle our emotions, we learn to bottle them up, and we learn control patterns. And what happens sometimes is that then the release that happens, if there is not enough safety, is a release that is actually not really helpful. And this is where what I've described here as what comes out of this bottled in the red arrows are the two extremes. They can be aggression or repression, or depression. The extreme of repression is depression. So this one, obviously, we all know how damaging aggression can be, and that is a release that might feel like a bit of a relief of a valve, but is actually not healthy and ultimately does not serve anybody. Repression sometimes might look less worrying. Children or people that are very well behaved and very quiet, but really ultimately things are being held down. Life energy and life force is being held down and in extreme it can lead to depression. So we know that neither of those two is healthy, but they tend to happen when this becomes a little bit too full of emotions, our bottle. And the trouble with those, of course, is that they lead to more emotions that can accumulate again and need to be bottled up because we don't find a healthy outlet. And this generates a little bit of as you can see, the arrows in this cycle are red, as opposed to the others, which are healthy green arrows. We can get caught up in this cycle. And the way out is through this finding our way back to a balance of attention, which then can lead us to a healthy release and our natural state. So I hope that this can help you understand why emotions come up, why sometimes they feel huge. What happens often is that we bottle them up, and then any pretext, any space in which we feel somewhat safe enough, we will use to clear up not only the emotion that has been triggered at that particular time, but a backlog of emotions, which is a very clever mechanism. But we need to understand as parents, my goodness, I only just said this very little thing. I mean, why is this huge reaction? It's actually, it's almost like the child thinks, great opportunity for house cleaning. Let's do a sprinkling. Let's just get rid of some of this backlog. And it happens to us as well, of course, when we overreact and go, my goodness, what's going on? Why am I having this kind of reaction? It's just trying to catch up on bottled up previous emotions that somehow they feel connected. They have a similar flavor, and our system works that way. It uses it as an opportunity to clear. So so the best we can do is just offer a lot of empathy, a lot of support, and a lot of understanding and trust, the knowing that that emotion is best felt fully and completely, and then it'll be released. And then we will have a child that is happy to suddenly cooperate, a child that's feeling a lot more relaxed and is feeling its best self. And the same with us. And for us, it's also really important that if we don't have those mechanisms to, or spaces of safety, that we find them with ourselves, maybe journaling, with friends that are really good listeners, or with therapists. It's just really, really important to clear this bucket, keep that bucket of emotions regularly emptied so that we can function optimally. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, please ask through the YouTube channel or Facebook or email, my website. I'd be very happy to engage in a dialogue about all this with you. All right, thanks, bye.